All right, let's go live. How's it going, everybody? Chuck Holton here. I'm coming to you from my studio in Panama. Recently cleaned by the maid. The maid came today, and so it got tidied up a little bit. Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for joining us. Please write in the chat box where you're watching from. That just to say hello. We like to see people. We got Oregon, Savannah. My son is on his way here from Savannah right now, as a matter of fact. Kansas, Olathe, Kansas. I see Diane Britson's in the house. So good to see all of you. And we have a lot to talk about as usual. We've got hostage recovery out of Gaza. Now, got to be clear, they recovered 2 bodies out of Gaza that belong to hostages. So that brings the total number of hostages left in Gaza to 48. And they still believe 20 of them are alive. We'll talk more about that in a second. Also, the diplomatic fallout that we may see from Secretary Rubio's decision to deny visas to officials from the Palestinian Authority at the United Nations. And so we'll take a look at that. We'll also talk a little bit about how yesterday Israel all but decapitated the Houthi leadership in a pretty clever strike. So more to discuss on that. And we'll get a little reminder about why this whole thing started. Why Israel has to go into Gaza and what that means for the ending of this war. You've seen a lot of protest footage coming out of Israel. The media likes to show that. Well, it shows division and dissension inside Israel. And there are hundreds of thousands of people who have come out into the streets in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and elsewhere. And they block traffic, start fires, wreck things, and essentially try to kidnap the whole town by bringing traffic to a stop, just to try to get their point across that they think the government of Israel should surrender to Hamas, should just pull out of Gaza, walk away, leave the remaining hostages in there held captive. Somehow they believe that that's going to motivate Hamas to just give up the hostages and live in peace forever. But I think we need a reminder of why that is not true. Also, there was another protest last night in Jerusalem, and this time they didn't block streets. They didn't spray paint graffiti or burn anything. They just all met. Tens of thousands of people met at the Kotel, the Wailing Wall, as they call it, and prayed and sang hymns, begging God to bring peace to Jerusalem. And so that's not going to get any news in the mainstream media for sure. But wow, we got somebody from Agadir, Morocco that's coming in. That's awesome. I like Morocco a lot. It's a really amazing place. So before I go any further, let's give a nod to our sponsor for today's video, which is Aura VPN service. Take a listen. Hey everybody, for over a decade, scammers, mostly out of Nigeria, have been stealing my photos to create fake profiles and scam women out of money. They use my pictures to create these fake social media profiles, and it must be effective because I've heard from hundreds of women over the years who have lost money to these jokers. It's infuriating, and honestly, it's violated my privacy in ways I never expected. But I'm not the only one. You know, Americans lost more than $12.5 billion to internet crime last year. And get this, 1 in 3 Americans will have their identity stolen at some point in their lives. That's why I partnered with Aura, who's sponsoring this video. And it's my favorite VPN right now because it's actually a lot more than just a virtual private network. It gives you all the VPN features you'd expect, but also scans the dark web for your info and alerts you fast if you've been leaked. It even sends removal requests to data brokers, you know, those guys who sell your personal details to advertisers and spammers. It also alerts you quickly if anyone tries to use your stolen information to open a credit or bank account in your name. They'll even cover you with up to $5 million in identity theft insurance if the worst happens. Does your current VPN do all that? If it doesn't, then go to my link at aura.com/hotzone to try 14 days for free. Not only will you get a feel for how their VPN works, but 2 weeks is more than enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal information is currently exposed. If you haven't been a victim of fraud yet, your turn is likely coming. So why are you still rolling the dice? If it's because protecting yourself feels overwhelming, let Aura do the hard work for you. Go to aura.com, aura.com/hotzone, and get started on your 14-day free trial and get 63% off. That's aura.com/hotzone. All right, let's get to the news. Okay, well, so what happened today in Gaza is the IDF and Shin Bet were able to locate and recover the bodies of two hostages, Ilan Weiss and another guy who was a soldier that they haven't identified his name yet. The way that they found these guys as they're pushing into Gaza City is through interrogations of captured Hamas soldiers. And this may actually present a ray of hope for the Israelis as they continue to push into Gaza. They have decided to suspend their ceasefires, daily ceasefires or tactical pauses that they had agreed to before in Gaza City specifically, where they had been saying, you know, from this time to this time, we're not going to fight in these areas. And that was in order to let the people get out of those areas and get to places where they could get food. But they are very motivated right now to push into Gaza City and try to recover more of their hostages. Now, the 7th Brigade of the IDF is one of many brigades that's pushing into Gaza City. They're taking the neighborhood of Zaytun. I have a map we can go look at that will show us a little bit of what's going on in Gaza. Here, what you see is the yellow denotes firefights or violence that's taking place. The purple is places that have been damaged, and then the blue is other. I don't know what that means, but Zaytun should be right in here somewhere. And the 7th Brigade, as I said, of the IDF has gone into Zaytun 7 times already, if you can believe that. They've already cleared that neighborhood 7 times. And then they leave every time. The people come back, Hamas comes back, and they have to go in and do it all over again. Now, that might sound like insanity, really, but in some ways it's not. And let me explain. Whenever the IDF goes into any place in Gaza, if they plan to pull out of that place later, they emplace a lot of different kinds of intelligence gathering devices. I can't go too far in explaining exactly what or how they do that, but you can use your imagination. And let's just say that they install various different kinds of devices that will give them very good intelligence or very good views of that area once they leave. And by doing that, they then pull out, they allow the people to come back in, and they can start gathering intelligence from those people as they are just going about their business. This is one way where that Israel has been able to locate and even rescue hostages in the past, although they're being very careful about that now. Now, the 7th Brigade is very motivated to go in and clear out Zaytun, not only because they've had to do it a bunch of times before, and this time may be the last time. They may keep it this time. That's the plan. But also because 6 of their fellow soldiers, 6 soldiers from the 7th Brigade, are still being held hostage. And they know that at least 2 of them are still alive. So obviously they want to go in and rescue their buddies, and they realize that time is of the essence. It's getting shorter and shorter as time goes on. So, you know, the chances of getting anybody out alive goes down every single day. And now I want to just move on to, here, this is a picture of the guy that they rescued, or not rescued, but they recovered his body, Ilan Weiss. Now, Ilan Weiss was a emergency responder at the Kibbutz Be'eri. And he was responding to October 7th when he was killed, and then they dragged his body into Gaza. Now, as you know, I got a chance to visit the Kibbutz Be'eri just a couple days after the attacks, right after they had finished clearing the kibbutz. And there were still, as you'll see, bodies laying around that they had bagged up, but they had not moved yet. And I think it's instructive for us to watch this piece that I put together from back then, just after October 7th, from the Kibbutz Be'eri, not only to honor the memory of Ilan Weiss, but to remember exactly why it's important for Gaza to go in. I'm sorry, for the IDF to go in and to continue to prosecute this war until the end, not to give up. So let's watch. As teams are still recovering bodies from the Kibbutz Be'eri, only 2 miles from the border. Children's toys lie scattered in the midst of shell casings and burned out cars. The smell of death lingers in the air, a pungent reminder of the hellish attack just over a week ago. Colonel Golan Vash gave a tour of the village, describing what he found when his team first arrived, only hours after the area had been retaken from the terrorists.
At this particular house, we found a family outside, exactly where you're standing right now. They were lying here, 2 couples, handcuffed and murdered, 2 women, 2 men. But it was only the beginning of what we saw inside. In this corner of this living room, we find a concentration of 8 babies burned among 15 other people, all of them in the same hole, like this living room and the next one. And I found this concept in the past few days of concentrating people to one place to kill them and to burn them.
The terrorists came across, they came in here and slaughtered about 10% of the residents of this kibbutz. These are children, old people. We're on this press tour today, and you can just see the incredible destruction that was wrought here. And the last terrorist was cleared out of this kibbutz a week after the initial attack. So their plan was to take this over and to use it as a bargaining chip and to take everyone hostage here. Instead, they got an incredible battle as soldiers from the IDF came in and killed all of the terrorists.
This took us a very long time. I think that some of the terrorists who come hiding in the houses, for example here, wait silently in a high readiness for 12 hours or 16 hours and then they get up. So every time that we saw that we cleaned the area and everything was silent, suddenly another 12 or another 20 got out. Yeah.
When the village was finally cleared, rescuers turned to recovery, and what they found will stay with them for the rest of their lives.
I found a mother lying, protecting her baby, and she was shot in the back, and the baby was beheaded.
You've been all over the world. You respond to rescues and crises. Describe how this compares to what you've seen around the world.
Nothing compared to that. And this, if we needed anything to convince us that we are not dealing people like us, we cannot use the same democratic tools that the world use. It's not the human rights that you in your mind think of. Okay, if we treat them at the same level, we will keep seeing these horrible things.
Yeah. How would you describe how the IDF is feeling and Israelis are feeling right now?
Right now, there is no place for feeling. We are professionals. We need to achieve our goals, and our goal is to ensure that the Hamas organization is no longer exist.
This is what we're talking about here. You see these pictures of people with their babies, their children, that just wanted to live a peaceful life. And on the 7th of October, that peace was shattered. And now their home looks like this.
And this is exactly the reason that we need to clear this region, not only the perimeter around the kibbutz. All this region we must clear from this kind of threat if we want to provide our citizens the security, the protection that we could not give them last Saturday. We need to do the right thing right now.
So that's just a reminder, a pretty powerful reminder, I have to say, for me especially, because it just brings back all of the memories of the things that I saw there at Kibbutz Be'eri. And you can imagine what those first responders had to go through, because it wasn't just about the 251 people that were taken hostage and dragged across the fence into Gaza. It wasn't just about the 1,200 or so people who were murdered, but they didn't just murder them. They desecrated them. They carved them into pieces. They you know, oh well, I can't even describe some of the horrors that they visited on the Israelis. So it's just, and then they used the Israelis' cell phones to call home to their mothers and brag about what they had done. To them, that was unbelievable. It was great. It was fantastic to be able to desecrate the bodies of elderly Israelis who, oh, by the way, were actually employing some of those Palestinians in their homes and trusting them and befriending them, trying to. And this is something you've seen across the globe, that there's a billion Muslims on planet Earth, and many of them are very nice, and many of them just want to be left alone and just want to live a peaceful life. But if even a percentage of them, 1% of them, are of the mindset of these monsters inside Gaza, that's over 100 million people. And this is all around the world. And so what we see with the attacks that continue to happen across Europe, the attacks that continue to happen even in the United States, that are tied to radical Islamic jihad, is that these people are normal and peaceable right up until the point when they're not. And it's important to remember that. It's important to remind ourselves of that from time to time. Now, yesterday I reported that Israel had pushed into Syria and they accomplished a raid just on the outskirts of Damascus, only 5 miles from the city center. And they took over a military base. It took about 2 hours. So there were airstrikes all around the military base to sort of keep quick reaction force at bay. Some, maybe 9 or 10 soldiers from the new Syrian regime were killed in that engagement. And they collected a whole bunch of intelligence. Some of the intelligence they collected was not in the form of computers or paperwork or anything like that. It was in the form of devices that had been installed by Turkey to spy on Israel. And we don't know exactly what they were, but it could have been radars. It could have been long distance cameras, maybe listening devices. I don't know. But whatever they were, it was sufficient enough for Israel to dismantle those and take them with them to back to Israel at the end of the mission. And today, the government of Turkey made a statement that they are cutting off all diplomatic relations with Israel. They're even closing their airspace to Israel, they claim, although that hasn't happened yet, which would mean that planes leaving Israel can no longer fly over Turkey to get somewhere else, even if they're not landing in Turkey. Again, that hasn't been put into effect yet, but they declared that they are closing their airspace to Israel. And so you might be tempted to connect those two things and say, oh, the Israelis dismantling those surveillance devices is what made Turkey angry. So Turkey is now trying to retaliate by just saying, we're not going to be friends ever again. You know, we're cutting off all diplomatic relations, etc. But that might not actually be why the Turks decided to take that step. And what might actually be the reason is because Benjamin Netanyahu publicly announced that he and the Israeli government recognized the Armenian genocide by the Turks back in 1918 to 1922. It's not just Armenians that were genocided. It was Armenians, Greeks, and Assyrians as well. Mostly, basically, it was a Muslim genocide of Christians who happened to be living inside what is now Turkey. So take a listen. This was on Patrick Bet-David's podcast, and you might have seen it on social media. It made a lot of waves. I will talk about this a little more.
You know, the Holocaust has been recognized by 193 different countries, right? Everybody around the world. And in some countries, if you denied, you could do jail time. Many countries, you can do jail time a year, 5 years. But for anybody that doesn't recognize Armenian, Assyrian genocide, if there's any country that I would have expected to be on the list that recognized the Armenian and the Assyrian and the Greek genocide, it would be Israel. Why haven't you yet recognized the Armenian, Assyrian, and the Greek genocide that the Turkish did to that community?
In fact, I think we have, because I think the Knesset passed a resolution to that effect.
I don't know if it's come from you, though. I don't know if it's come from the Prime Minister of Israel.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay.
Here you go.
All right. Well, thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate you. That's important to me. And I'm sure a lot of Armenians, Assyrians, and Greeks around the world appreciate you saying that.
So, I mean, okay, so Netanyahu said, okay, I just did. I have not been able to find any corroboration of his assertion that the Knesset had announced that they were going to recognize the Armenian genocide. So I don't think that was the case. But you know what that tells me? That that's very low on Benjamin Netanyahu's radar. He doesn't even really know if the Knesset does that, and he was sort of surprised to hear that they hadn't, and so he couldn't believe it. And so he said, "No, I think they did actually." What that tells me is that the Israelis, what I've always said about the relationship between Israel and Armenia, is that the Israelis just don't think about Armenia a whole lot. And yes, they are aligned with Azerbaijan, and that's specifically because Azerbaijan is at odds with Iran, and so they can have commiserate between Israel and Azerbaijan to resist the influence of Iran in the region. Also, Israel gets a large amount of oil and natural gas from Azerbaijan, which they need. And so there's something they have to offer each other, even though Azerbaijan is a dictatorial, extremist Muslim country that tries to come off as a progressive Western country. They're a lot like Qatar in that way. And they've got a tremendous amount of money from their oil revenues. They're a lot like Qatar in that way. And they spread those revenues around to try to improve the image of Azerbaijan on the world stage, just like Qatar does. But when you really dig into Azerbaijan, they are a monstrous government. Ilham Aliyev is a mass murderer. They are holding Armenian hostages and have been for years. And so it's right for the Armenians to sort of go like, hey, what about us over here when Israel is buddying up to Azerbaijan? But I tell my Armenian friends all the time that there are, I must say that Armenians are very proud that no Jews in Armenia. There are Jews in Armenia. I've met them. Zigal. There is a synagogue in Armenia, as a matter of fact. So you're wrong. I don't know where you got that idea that there are no Jews in Armenia. Armenians are very proud of their heritage and very proud of their religion, the Armenian Apostolic Church. Virtually every Armenian considers himself a Christian, even if he has no clue what the Bible says or has no relationship with Jesus Christ or anything like that. They just consider themselves, of course I'm a Christian because I'm Armenian, and Armenia is a Christian country. Well, a nation cannot be one religion or another. The people of a nation can be. So Armenians are incorrect when they, assume that they are Christians because they happen to live in a country that was the first country to declare Christianity in the 4th century. So there's that. But when it comes, I tell Armenians this all the time, you should maybe have a little grace with Israel, because it's not that Israel is anti-Armenia. They just don't even think about Armenia because Armenia has nothing to offer them. Armenia is aligned with Russia, who is an adversary to Israel. And so Armenia just gets lumped in with Russia. And of course, Armenians are pulling away from their alignment with Russia and would love very much to align more with the European Union. As a matter of fact, there was a meeting between, what is that guy, Jens Stoltenberg or whatever his name is, from the United Nations or from NATO, in Yerevan the other day, between him and Nikol Pashinyan, the president of Armenia, or the prime minister, I'm sorry. They had a meeting in Yerevan to talk about how they could come up with a special exception for Armenia, which is very far away from NATO, from the North Atlantic, right? if we pull up a map here of Armenia, we'll go over here to the map and pull this up. If we look here at Armenia, sandwiched between Azerbaijan and Turkey, and with Iran to the south and Georgia to the north, very close to the Russian border. And of course, NATO is over here in this part. This is all NATO, but they want NATO to make a special exception to allow Armenia to join NATO because Armenians need a big brother. And they really cannot count on Russia anymore to be their big brother. So there you go. PC says they cannot be Christians if they do not follow. It's not like being a Jew. I'm a Jew because my mom was. Even if I do not follow Judaism, I'm still a Jew. It's not like that with Christianity. So PC, what you're saying is that you're ethnically Jewish, but you're not religiously Jewish. And of course, Christianity is not an ethnicity. Christianity is a religion. So you're absolutely correct about that. Thank you for the $9.99. I appreciate that. So Turkey cutting diplomatic ties with Israel probably has more to do with that 1-minute segment on Patrick Bet-David's show where Benjamin Netanyahu announced, or just right there in real time, acknowledged the Armenian genocide by the Ottoman Turks. Doing that in Turkey is illegal. Will get you put in jail. So the Turks are pretty sensitive about mentions of the Armenian genocide. They like to pretend that that didn't exist, that it didn't happen. The only problem with that is that there are myriad places where you can go and see evidence of that. I've been to Deir ez-Zor, for example, in southern Syria, where the Armenian genocide had its terminus, where they marched these Armenians about 900 miles south out of Turkey into the desert, hoping that they would all just die of thirst. And by the time they got to Deir ez-Zor, they were almost to the Iraqi border, and they were like, these people are not dying fast enough. And so they just massacred them all there. And there are mounds of bones, even to this day, in Deir ez-Zor, left over from the Armenian genocide. So there's a tremendous amount of proof that the Armenian genocide did take place. It was fomented by the Turks. The Turkish government and the Azerbaijani government worked together, even so closely as to provide weapons to Azerbaijan during their war with Armenia back in 2020. And so a lot of the Armenian soldiers, there were over 5,000 of which died in that 44-day war, lost their lives due to Turkish drones that were flying overhead that had been sent over there by Turkey. So Beth Sillers-Anderson said, Chuck made me love Armenia. I'm telling you what, folks, if you don't know about Armenia, you're missing out. Armenia, look, I've been to most countries on planet Earth. On that map back there, I've been to most of the countries on that map. And Armenia is the best country that I've been to all around in terms of going someplace as a tourist. I mean, if you want to go see some natural beauty, some incredible history, partake of some amazing food and wine, and meet some very friendly people in a environment that is post-Soviet, so it's got a lot of really cool stuff from the Soviet Union that's still around. That's Armenia. I've been to all the big bucket list spots in Western Europe, the Eiffel Tower and Rome, the Trevi Fountain, and the Leaning Tower of Pisa and, Venice, and you name it. I've been to all those places, you name it. Big Ben and the UK, every place. And none of those places hold a candle to what you can find in Armenia. So if you haven't been to Armenia, I would highly recommend it as a tour destination. We run tours to Armenia. We've got one going next June, from June 13th to the 23rd. And you can join my wife and I in Armenia, and we will show you around personally. So there are still slots available for that tour. Just get a hold of us by sending an email to info@holtonnews.com, and we can get all the information about the tour into your hands. I really recommend it. I mean, I can't recommend Armenia highly enough. It's not a perfect country, and I'm not positive that I would want to live there, just because the language barrier would be really tough to overcome. Armenian is one of the most difficult languages to learn on planet Earth. And if you learn it, you're going to be able to talk to other Armenians. And that's it. It's not like it bleeds over like Russian. You can speak to a third of the population of the planet practically if you learn to speak Russian. English, same way. Probably half the planet you can get by with English. But Armenians, very small group of people with a very difficult language. So that makes it tough getting around there in some ways, which is why I've been learning Russian, because if I am in Armenia, I can speak Russian to people and they will understand me. They're probably not going to like me very much because they don't like Russians all that much right now. But they will at least understand me, and then I can explain in Russian that I'm actually American, and then that fixes it. It makes it better. So Judy Beck says, Armenia sounds wonderful. I would love to go there. Well, come on, Judy. What's stopping you? Get your passport. Send us an email, and we'll set you up to come with us on the tour. I'd love to meet you. All right. So now let's move on to what happened in New York, because this is great. You've heard me be, Chuck, do you know if the military base is still in Kazakhstan? I'll answer that question at the end. You've heard me be critical of President Trump from time to time whenever he does something that I disagree with. And I think that in a healthy democracy, we ought to be able to criticize our leaders, even if they happen to be the leader that we voted for. We want to hold them accountable as much as possible. And when they engage in things that are not healthy, not good for America, in my view, then I'm going to say so. However, so many things that President Trump has done just make me so happy. And this is one of them. So yesterday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that he was blocking the Palestinian Authority and the PLO from attending the UN General Assembly in New York City in September. Those guys have to get visas to come to the United States like everybody else does. And getting a visa to the United States is no joke. It's difficult to do. We have friends here in Panama, for example, that I would love to bring to our place in West Virginia and host them there. And it's not worth the trouble. It costs a lot of money, and it's kind of a lottery system. So to try to do it legally to get into the United States is difficult. Of course, under the Biden administration, people said, that's okay, I'll just go in illegally and won't worry about the visa. But that is not a thing anymore. So if you're going to get a visa to the United States, it's valuable. I remember when my daughter-in-law, Rubina, got her tourist visa to the United States. We were shocked because to get a tourist visa to the United States, you got to prove that you have something to go back to in your home country, because they don't want you coming into the U.S. on a tourist visa and then staying and overstaying that visa, which a lot of people did, So you've got to prove that you've got a bank account in your home country, you've got a house in your home country, you've got a job in your home country, you've got hopefully a family in your home country, all these things that you have to go back to in your home country so that before you can qualify to get a visa. And even then, it's still a lottery. You still have to pay your money, and they pick one name out of the hat out of about 300 people. One out of every 300 people, last I heard, actually gets the visa. So when Rubina went to try to get her visa, she was not yet married. I don't think she was yet married to my son, or else maybe they were just married. She hadn't changed her name yet or anything. And she didn't have a lot of money in the bank, didn't own a house, didn't have a job to point to. She was in school, that sort of thing. So the likelihood of her getting a tourist visa was somewhere between slim and none. But she heard that there was an open slot for an interview at the embassy in Yerevan, and so she took it and just on a whim sort of went there. This is during the Biden administration. And she walked in and said, I'd like to get a visa to the United States. And they were like, sure, here's a 10-year visa. I was like, what? And the place was full of Russians, apparently. This is, during the war, who had fled Russia so they didn't get sent to Ukraine. And they were also getting visas to the United States, which doesn't excite me a whole lot. But we were obviously very excited that my daughter-in-law was going to get to come to the U.S. But if you try to do that now, it's going to be more difficult. And the Trump administration has been cracking down on the issuance of those visas. That makes me happy in some ways and doesn't make me happy in other ways. But in this particular case, what Secretary Rubio did is he blocked members of the Palestinian Authority and PLO who already had visas to come to the United States. So he revoked their visas so that they cannot come to New York for the UN General Assembly. And that is going to, number one, that's a slap in the face to the whole idea of Palestine as a nation. As you probably know, the United Nations gave the non-existent nation of Palestine observer status, non-member observer status in the United Nations. So there is a Palestine representative that sits in on the UN General Assembly and gives speeches. He just can't vote on things. And so we have to put up with this, farce of a non-existent nation lecturing us and Israel and everybody else, condemning Israel and all of their allies on a regular basis in the United Nations. And it's a little tough to stomach, I have to tell you. But Rubio cannot shut down the Palestinian entity in the United Nations. We don't have the ability to do that. That would go against our obligations, our contractual obligations with the United Nations. So the mission, the Palestinian mission in the United Nations is still there. And they still have a staff of people who can continue to bloviate in the UN General Assembly like everybody else does. They still can't vote. But by yanking the visas for people like President Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority and barring them from coming is more than just political theater. It's a symbolic blow. It's got some historical context. This is not the first time that's happened. Yasser Arafat had his visa denied in 1988, and the United States has put restrictions on Iranian and other delegations as well from time to time. So this is something that needed to happen a long time ago, and we should definitely take steps, whatever steps are possible, to reduce the visibility, the influence and the power of the Palestinian Authority over the United Nations in any way we can. It's just unfortunate that we can't remove them altogether, that we can't kick out every one of the members of the Palestinian mission to the United Nations. I don't know why we can't. They all have visas as well. Those are diplomatic visas, though. And for some reason, we are not choosing to do that. So in some ways, this move by the Trump administration is performative, but in other ways, it's substantive, and more power to them. I mean, good on you, Secretary Rubio. Let's see more of that. Now, Hamas claims that they have accepted a ceasefire proposal for Gaza that involves a 60-day truce, a phased release of half the remaining hostage, going back to what they had been trying to mediate before Israel announced that they were going to go all in and take over all of Gaza City. And the reason for that is because Hamas does not want to see Gaza City razed to the ground like much of Gaza has been already. And, they're continuing to push this narrative of, Hamas is reasonable. We've accepted the ceasefire proposal. Well, it's the same ceasefire proposal that they rejected before, but now that Israel is like, fine, we're going all in. Hamas is like, oh, wait, let's go back to the negotiating table a little bit. But here's what they do. You have to understand Hamas's modus operandi here. They will do what they can to restart ceasefire negotiations, and then they'll drag their feet, and then they'll throw an extra few conditions in there like, oh, by the way, Israel has to give up. They're not serious. They're like Russia in that way. They're not serious at all about getting a ceasefire. And what the Israelis have said, if you recall, is that they are done negotiating for a partial release of some of the hostages. They will only accept the release of all of the remaining hostages at one time. All of them. Every single one of them. That is something that Hamas is not going to agree to, because they are the only bargaining chips Hamas has. If Hamas gives all of those up, it's all over for them. But if they don't give them up, Israel's going to go in and they're going to flatten Gaza City. And that's obviously going to cause a lot of human suffering. It's going to drastically reduce the livable area of Gaza. And it may have to happen. And it may actually result in the rescue or death of the remaining Israeli hostages. It will result in one of those two outcomes for sure. Now, I wanted to point out something here when it comes to this famine that you keep hearing about in Gaza. The UN is still beating this drum like it's, 3 weeks ago. It was working for them 3 weeks ago. It's not working so well for them now to continue to claim that there's famine in Gaza. The AP, which is completely in the tank for Hamas, is reporting today that the famine is expanding in Gaza, and another 13 people died yesterday of hunger. Well, number one, where's the pictures of those people? There's no pictures. There's no videos of these people who are supposedly dying of hunger. And number two, by their own pre-published definition of famine, according to the number of people who remain in Gaza, 2.2 million or 2.3 million, there should be several hundred people every day dying of hunger in Gaza. And if there were, you can bet there would be lots and lots of pictures and videos of those people. But we see no pictures, no videos, just claims that people are dying of hunger. And so far, Hamas, by their own numbers, says that only 350 or so people have died during the entire war of hunger. There would have to be that many people dying every day for it to be a legitimate famine in Gaza. But we don't even need to make that case, because the Palestinians are making the case for us with videos like this one. Take a listen. And I translated this to English if you wondered why this woman is speaking English.
Hello, greetings from the heart of destruction and siege. Today, folks, Elias Bakery in the Asbahaba market has opened its shop with reasonable prices, accepting both app and cash payments. I want to show you what they have and their prices. Hello, greetings. You are the owner of the shop, right?
No, about existence.
Hello and welcome. Thank you. Did you open the new shop? We want to see what you have. You see everyone
Ooh, cupcakes.
has cakes of all kinds for those who want to
Yum.
take them for birthdays. He
Birthday
also accepts
cakes.
app payments. It's the same as cash, even for a minimum of 100 shekels. And here, everyone is the code. And here are the mamul, everyone, just for those who...
A kilo for 90.
A kilo for 90. Everyone.
80 per kilo.
A kilo for 80. And what else do you have? I mean, he only has this sweet.
This is also available for you at Zanats only.
So that was yesterday in Gaza. We're seeing these videos come out on a daily basis from Gaza. There is no famine in Gaza. It just can't, I mean, how much clearer can you make it? They're selling cupcakes. They're selling, sweets for 80 shekels for a kilo. I mean, so cheap. Now, thank you, PC. Very kind of you. And folks, I do want to say it means a lot when people like PC and MM and all the rest of you who just consistently support us with little tips and super chats, super thanks, things like that. You can help if you don't have any money and you don't want to support us financially. That's okay. You can still support the channel by going to chuckholton.com and becoming a subscriber over there for free, or you can become a supporter as well. Also, you can hit the like button on this channel and tell people, you like this video. And by doing that, it tells the algorithm that more people need to see this video. So we've got 3,600 people watching. So let's get more likes up there. I just reminding you, because I forget all the time to do that too. So go ahead and hit that like button. I'll wait. Just boop, hit the boop, boop, hit the, okay. All right. Thank you for those of you who are hitting the like button. I appreciate all of you. Now, just to reiterate before I go to the questions, there have been 2 hostage bodies. Thank you, Lori. Very kind of you. That were recovered out of Gaza today. One of them is a civilian who was killed on October 7th. His body was taken into Gaza from the Kibbutz Be'eri. The other one is a soldier, and they have not released the name of that soldier yet. Tiz Repinto booped the boop, so thank you for booping that boop. I appreciate your booping. All right, so let's go to our questions. If I can find them here. Drag those over here. All right, Nathan Holton. At Nathan Holton. Would you ask Chuck to tell us about what's happening in Africa, specifically Darfur and involving Somalia? Why are the people being killed and starvation? Who's doing this and why? Okay, one way I'll have to do a live on that someday, or a video or something. That's a much longer conversation. I just interviewed Ken Isaacs from Samaritan's Purse yesterday, and that video is going to be going up on Locals today and probably, and then over on YouTube in a few days. And he talks a lot about that. So I highly recommend you go find that video and then watch it, because that'll answer a lot of your questions. Bruce Clark says, what's the reasoning behind supporting the Israeli society that believes stopping the war will actually work and they will have all the hostages returned? Well, they're out of their minds. I mean, it's insane to think that you could reward Hamas with an end to the war, an end to the fighting, with the complete pullout of forces from Gaza, leaving Hamas intact, leaving hostages in Gaza, and then expect that Hamas is going to do anything other than declare total victory and dance in the streets and then start looking for ways to take more hostages. That is what they would do. There's no question about it. And so these leftists that, are pushing Israel to take a plea, some sort of bargain with Hamas, they're just depraved. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Mama Marissa says, aren't there some villages in the UK that allow Sharia law, or is that a rumor? I've heard that rumor as well, Mama Marissa, but I don't know. I do know the last time I was in Cardiff in Wales, I would have believed I was in Saudi Arabia. Everybody was wearing a burqa, dressed, dressed like Arabs. The storefronts were all written in Arabic. You might be surprised if you haven't been to Europe lately. The first time I went to Europe was 1987, I think. And I've been back hundreds of times since. And I can tell you that Europe is not the country, it's not the way it was back then. It has changed dramatically. Most of Western Europe, you can still see the vestiges of the beauty and the grandeur in the architecture and things like that, as long as it's not, more than, less than 20 feet from the ground, because anything that's 20 feet or lower from the ground in Europe is covered with graffiti. One of the reasons I like going to Armenia is that you don't see graffiti everywhere. What is it about graffiti anyway? I'm going to do a video about this when I was in Barcelona last week. Barcelona used to be one of my favorite places to go in Europe. It used to be just a wonderful walking town, so much beautiful architecture, incredible history, great food, and friendly people, and now everything is covered with graffiti. Why do people do that? I can't get my mind around. I live here, and so I therefore am going to make this place as ugly as I possibly can by spray painting anything in my reach with the ugliest possible artwork. I mean, it's one thing if you get a commission from somebody who owns a building with a big wall on it to paint a mural on the building. That's great. You see those all over the place. I love that. It's artwork. But the graffiti I'm talking about it's just your typical, tags from, it's somebody saying, I'm cool, I was here, that kind of thing. And I think people that do that are about the stupidest people on planet Earth. It's like urinating in your own bed and then being surprised that it smells bad, that it's uncomfortable. I mean, you're literally making the place where you live worse. Why would you do that? I don't understand. So how do I get on that subject? We're talking about Sharia law. But again, this is one of the reasons why and why I like Eastern Europe much more, because you don't just see that kind of wanton destruction of beauty. Maybe it's just because people can't afford spray paint. I don't know. But there, other than some places in Hungary that I've been, most of Eastern Europe has still thankfully avoided most of the graffiti trend. And Armenia for sure has. Because if you spray painted somebody's wall in Armenia, they're going to come find you and they're going to kick your keister all over the place. They don't put up with that stuff. Okay, so Mia D says, were the hostages they found already assumed to be dead? Yes, they were. They were ones that they had known were killed on October 7th and then taken into Gaza. Benjamin Neesham says, I'm not sure I'll be able to physically get to Armenia, at least before the Millennial Kingdom, but is there a book you could recommend which would provide a flavor of the history and culture? Oh gosh, there's a whole bunch. Let me ask Rubina to answer that question by putting together a list of good books about Armenia. I've read probably 25 or 30 books about Armenia, and there are tons. There are lots of good ones out there that will just blow your mind. If you are not able to physically go to Armenia until the Millennial Kingdom, what you can do is go to my new YouTube channel, which is linked in the description of this video. And it's just called Holton Global Adventures, I think. If you just do a search on YouTube for my name and skip past the hot zone stuff, you'll find it there. What I've been doing is just recording my hikes every day and walks around town and things like that. And you can put it up on the big screen and feel like you're there and walking along with me. So I highly recommend that new channel. If you haven't seen it yet, it would be a personal favor to me if you would go over and subscribe to that channel. And you're not going to get spammed a bunch because I'm not putting a lot of daily content up there yet. But just to get the numbers up and get the watch time up, it would be a favor to me if you'd go watch that channel. Okay, Broski Bear says, would Turkey want to encourage military action against Israel with the no-fly zone in hopes that NATO backs Turkey and the U.S. backs Israel, causing a much bigger issue for all parties? I don't think Turkey wants to go to war with Israel because they would likely lose. Turkey has a large military, and their military is not expeditionary, so they're not really going to be able to march troops to... I mean, they're one of the few countries in the world that actually could pull it off, but it would take a lot of expense, a lot of planning, and they would lose a lot of troops in Syria on their way as they were marching to Israel, because you can bet Israel would know about it as soon as the Turkish army crossed the border into Syria, and Israel would be airstriking the heck out of those people before they ever got to Israel. So I don't think it's likely. The United States would put a tremendous amount of pressure on Turkey not to get involved militarily against Israel. And so it's just, it's not in the cards. That's a very, very low probability. Alejandro Rodriguez, Chuck, please, what happened in Venezuela? We have about 12 warships in the vicinity of the Venezuelan coast. They are there to stop the flow of drugs coming out of Venezuela. And I think there's a non-zero chance that the United States will actually get into a military conflagration with Venezuela in the near future. It's not a high chance, but there is absolutely a chance. There's some precedent for that. I mean, I took part in the invasion of Panama back in 1990. 89, 90. And, we came in, we removed a dictator from Panama, and we left and installed a democratically elected government. Nicolas Maduro is no longer the democratically elected president of Venezuela. He just refused to accept defeat in the previous election and exiled the guy who did win the election out of the country. So there is some precedent for making a, quick operation to snatch Nicolas Maduro. And if he falls, then that country will get a whole lot better in short order. And it's definitely, I mean, they got a $50 million reward on his head. So, I mean, I might try for that if I felt like I had a way to, get in there and get the information necessary to turn over to the U.S. government that would allow them to snatch him. But we'll have to wait and see. I can foresee more videos and podcasts about Venezuela in the near future, so stay tuned. Disciple of Jesus Stephanie says, I'm just jumping in from work. What's going on? Okay, we already got to that. They recovered 2 bodies of hostages. Ken Shane says, do you think that Europe is lost? Yes, I do. I think Europe will become a Muslim enclave in very short order, probably, easily within our lifetimes. It will be controlled and majority Muslim. Why? Because Europeans are not having babies, and Muslims that are in Europe are. Average Muslim woman in Europe has 7 children. Average European has basically none. We were talking to some Germans who stayed at our house yesterday, and they have 1 child. They didn't get married until she was in her 40s. And that's even amazing because most Germans don't get married at all anymore, don't want kids. So many people in Europe and in the United States are accepting this lie, this environmental lie that the world is overpopulated and there's too many people and it's too expensive to have kids and all that kind of stuff. And so the people who have babies will take over the world. And in Europe, that means the Muslims. Clint Cyber says, where's Hamas's weapons and ammunition coming from? A lot of it's coming in from Egypt. I'm not saying the Egyptian military is bringing it in, but the IDF is shooting down drones almost every day that are coming across the border from Egypt, carrying bundles with machine guns and ammunition and explosives and stuff in those bundles. And I imagine that if the IDF is shooting down drones like that every day, that there are more drones that are actually making it through. Now, this comes from Hamas-aligned operatives in Egypt, not from the Egyptian military or government or anything like that on their own. Wouldn't be surprised if Iran has operatives in Egypt that are running these ops to try to get weapons to Hamas. But Hamas had a whole lot of weapons before the war started, and they're buried pretty much everywhere. So all you have to do is dig a hole in Gaza, and you're likely to dig up some weapons or explosives. Daniel says, what are your thoughts on Israel targeting the Houthis and Prime Minister? Oh, I did have a graphic on that. Thank you for reminding me, Daniel. If we go over here to, oh gosh, where are we? Take that off studio mode. This group of Houthis was reportedly eliminated yesterday as the guy at the top right was giving a speech. Now, I've heard reporting both ways, that the guy at the top right there his last name is al-Houthi. He's the Houthi leader, and he's the one that's always up giving these bland, supposedly fiery speeches with his knife stuck in his belt. Like, what are you trying to prove there, guy? Nobody's impressed with your large knife. But some reports say that he was also whacked in that strike yesterday. Some reports say he was not, that he was elsewhere. But what they did do was lure all these people together into one location and then bomb that location. So couldn't have happened to a nicer group of guys. And the Houthis have yet to really respond to this. And I think that is a pretty good sign that they were hurt badly yesterday. And so we'll see what comes of that. Wendy Lum says, what is this I'm reading that President Trump told Israel to stop the war? No, President Trump said, I expect the war will probably be over in the next couple of weeks. So Israel Hayom has an op-ed, for example, saying something big may be coming. We don't know what, but for President Trump to say that And there were some other signs like people in Netanyahu's staff that are vital to the war effort have announced their retirement dates coming up in the next few weeks, stuff like that. So something big might be about to happen, but I'm not hearing that President Trump told Israel to stop the war. As a matter of fact, he's telling them, do what you got to do to end the war, which is just the opposite of telling them to stop the war. PC says, when is the last time Putin actually won an election fairly? Man, he's been around for 30 years, so it could be 20 years ago. When you watch his entire reign, he has done nothing but consolidate power to himself. So that's a good question. Broski Bear says, do you know the breakdown of the type of the 12 warships near Venezuela? We have some guided missile frigates, some cruisers, and some destroyers there, and about 4,000 Marines. That's all I know about that. And so 4,000 Marines, there are videos coming out every day from Venezuela of the Venezuelan military recruiting people, militia members showing up. These are not even National Guards troops. They're just everyday Venezuelans who are showing up and saying, I'll fight. And they have no training. They have no weapons. And so 4,000 Marines ought to do the job if we really want to get the job done. A couple of special operations units to go in and snatch Maduro, 4,000 Marines to secure the area while they do that, and we're in and out, and it's over in a very short order. So again, we're going to keep our eye on Venezuela and see what's going on there. Sarah Esk says, so could it be that Europe is bringing in the Muslims because they're having more children? And if Europeans don't have kids, these countries are seeking the next generation of workforce? You're exactly right about that, Sarah. The leftist globalists, like Angela Merkel, for example, that was their mindset, is we need these people in Europe because Europeans are not having babies. We need more taxpayers to be paying taxes to pay for our extended welfare, social network. And the Biden administration felt the same way. That was, I believe, the reason that the Biden administration threw open the floodgates and let in 12 million, maybe, illegal immigrants during his tenure, is that Americans are not having babies either. We've dropped below 1.6 children per woman, which is terminal decline. Terminal decline means the next generation will be 40% smaller than the last generation, and it's almost impossible to pull out of that steep of a dive. So the Biden administration said we need more taxpayers. We can artificially inflate the voter rolls, not the voter rolls, maybe the voter rolls. We can artificially inflate the economy, the economic numbers, because more people means more economic activity. So we can make the economy look better, sort of fake boost to the economy. It's not helping Americans so much, but it makes the numbers look like Americans are getting helped, is what I'm saying. And so, yeah, you're exactly right about that. Lori W. says, what is the latest news on Ukraine and Russia? I need to do a full video on what's going on between Ukraine and Russia. Russia struck Kyiv with about 600 drones and missiles, and you would think, well, what's left of Kyiv then? The thing is, every night Russia does this. The Ukrainians shoot down 3/4 of the drones and missiles that get fired into Ukraine. So yes, there's damage. Yes, there's a lot of damage, but it doesn't look like Gaza in Kyiv. And I need to get over there and show you, and get on the ground and show you. I should have gone instead of going to Kazakhstan, but I just really wanted to see Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan with my son. So I decided instead a couple weeks ago to go to Kazakhstan. And there's a video about our trip that Nathan just put up on the YouTube channel that you can see here. Ollie Woods, how big was Armenia before the genocide? Well, ancient Armenia covered about the eastern third of Turkey and all of what is now Azerbaijan. and even some of Georgia and going up toward Russia there. It went all the way up to the Black Sea. So do you think the Trump administration will protect Armenia now that Russia has left them open to new attacks? I do think the Trump administration is interested in seeing peace in that region, and the way they're going about it is a little tough to stomach for many Armenians, but the Armenians want peace too. So we'll see what happens. PC says, will Muslims take over the U.S. too? Not in our lifetime. There's not enough Muslims in America to outbreed the Americans just yet. But I would encourage you to encourage anybody of childbearing age to keep having babies. I'm doing my part. We've got 6 grandchildren, and I keep telling my kids, I'm ready for the next 6. Like, bring them on. Speaking of which, I'm going to have to let you go, folks, because my son and his family, my oldest son, are coming to visit from Savannah, Georgia, today to Panama, and they're going to be at the airport here pretty soon. And so we got to go get ready for a great, exciting few days with them and their babies. So we're going to have some grandkid time, and that's going to be fantastic. We're looking forward to it. So I'll still keep on doing the lives, keep on putting up the videos. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all of you who are on today. Don't forget our sponsor, aura.com. That's AURA.com. If you want a good, a good VPN, this one is one of the best ones. I mean, they called me the other day. Like, I got a phone call from Aura saying, hey, how can we help you more? I thought it was a sales call or something, but I'm a paying member of Aura. I was paying for Aura before they became a sponsor, and they just had a representative call me and say, hey, is there more that we could do for you in terms of getting your information off the dark web, or what, do you have any questions or anything like that? That's pretty good service, if you ask me. So I would recommend you go check them out as well. All right, folks, thank you again for watching. I appreciate all of you, and we will see you again next time. Take care.